Shifting trade winds, Taiwan's exports to the U.S. hit a new monthly record, once again topping those to China. Asia's most powerful storm this year wreaks havoc across Vietnam after leaving a trail of destruction in the Philippines and China. U.S. presidential nominees Kamala Harris and Donald Trump prepare to go head-to-head in a primetime debate that could decide the outcome of the election. Plus, Taiwanese wheel cakes on the streets of Paris. Find out how this shop is sharing a Taiwanese favorite snack with everybody in the French capital. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. Taiwan's exports hit an all-time monthly high of nearly $44 billion in August. That's largely thanks to growing demand for high-end chips powering artificial intelligence. The trend also presents a geopolitical shift, pulling the U.S. market closer to Taiwan than that of China's. Joyce Tseng explains.
Leaning into its advantage as the world's largest chip maker, Taiwan is reaching new heights for its economy. Exports rose to a record $43.6 billion, exceeding market forecasts as demand for AI and high-performance computing remains strong. Breaking it down by country, a new record was also set in exports to the U.S. This figure soared almost 80% to hit $11.8 billion, giving the U.S. a continued lead over China as the top destination for Taiwanese exports, especially its very expensive advanced chips.
It's confirming and I would say even deepening Taiwan's kind of monosectoral economy. Yeah, it is chips and chips and chips, just that more valuable chips. It's good news, but it's a warning signal of a very concentrated sector, but also a very concentrated destination, the U.S.
The U.S. leads the global market in the design and software of advanced chips, like the ones for AI. With giants like NVIDIA, AMD, and major consumer electronics brands like Apple that just revealed its latest iPhone equipped with new AI capabilities, the U.S. is the main initiator behind this boom. These are all customers of TSMC, which is reporting an August revenue boost of 33%, hitting $7.8 billion US. The scale of this is clear in Taiwan's export numbers, namely in this category, automatic data processing machinery. It's a broad category within computers, but it includes things like central processing units and helps computers process more things at a faster pace. And this is the hardware AI demands. Taiwan's exports to the U.S. in this category in August dwarfs the amount that went to China at $5.9 billion versus a mere $39 million. Some economists are concerned that Taiwan may be putting all of its eggs into the AI basket, a hot sector for now, but one that has yet to stand the test of time. Eason Chen and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus.
For more on the long-term outlook of Taiwan's economy, especially given its reliance on the high-tech sector, Joyce Tseng spoke to Nick Maro, the lead global trade analyst at the Economist Intelligence Unit.
How significant is this new monthly high in Taiwanese exports going to the U.S. and also its relation to the rate of shipments going to China?
Yeah, well, the latest trade figures really validate the bullish expectations that we have for the Taiwanese economy. We're expecting real GDP growth to exceed 4% this year, and a lot of that reflects what's happening in the trade picture. And really, Taiwan's incredibly competitive positioning in global value chains when it comes to chip making. We've been seeing trade patterns in Northeast Asia start to shift over the past couple of quarters. And shipments to China and Hong Kong, those shipments are still an incredibly important part of the export basket for Taiwan. But when we look at the U.S. is really a growing source of demand here, and it's changing how kind of the world thinks about Taiwan in terms of its relationship with the rest of the world.
In your view, is Taiwan in danger of relying too much on the high-tech sector, especially chips, for its economy?
That's one of the big risks that we would kind of attach as a caveat for this very positive story for growth. It's never a great thing to just be beholden to one industry. And as bright as the optics look like for technology, I mean, anytime there's going to be any disruptions to that or demand's not going to perform as well as people anticipated, there'll be consequences. Looking into 2025, that's the big risk for kind of the immediate future for Taiwan. I mean, depending on who wins the US election, we could see US policy turn a bit more protectionist, and Taiwan is very much in the crosshairs there. As a trade-dependent economy, the policies coming out of the White House could have a disproportionate effect. So keeping a close eye on what happens in November is going to be important for Taiwan as well.
That was Nick Maro, lead global trade analyst at the Economist Intelligence Unit. Taiwan's defense ministry has earmarked funds to buy an advanced electronic warfare upgrade for new F16V fighter jets on order. The defense ministry says it will spend over $1.3 billion to secure the next generation equipment known as Viper Shield. US-based manufacturer L3 Harris describes the system as a virtual electronic shield with offensive electronic warfare capabilities. Taiwan has purchased 66 new F-16Vs from the U.S. and expects to get the first 2 jets by the end of this year. 2 kindergarten teachers in Taipei have been charged in a child abuse case involving at least 4 children. An investigation found the teachers repeatedly hit the children and put tape over their mouths, causing them to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. It's one of several child abuse cases in Taiwan this year. Child safety groups say teachers lack the necessary training for the role.
1对多的一个照顾，老师在辅导的行为上面是必须要有技巧的。因此，我们在近期的这些儿虐案件来看到呢，其实老师都挺缺乏这个所谓的正向辅导跟管教的一个经验。
Typhoon Yagi has killed at least 64 people in Vietnam. It's the strongest storm to hit the country in decades. For many survivors, the grim task of rebuilding their lives now begins. Rosie Greninger has the story of one woman whose business has been left in tatters.
45-year-old Nguyen T. Tom returns to what's left of her restaurant by the popular Halong Bay. Once filled with tourists, it's now in ruins after Typhoon Yagi ripped off its roof as it slammed into northeastern Vietnam.
Nói chung là mất hết anh ạ, không còn gì cả. Tại vì nhìn xung quanh mọi người cũng mất hết, nhưng mà mất hết thì cái tài sản nó sẽ khác với em. Thì cũng không ra, mình có buồn cũng không dám nói. Không dám nói là lúc nào cũng nói là mình khổ thế này cũng không được. Thì thôi cố gắng.
With winds of 203 kilometers per hour, Typhoon Yagi destroyed infrastructure across the country, ravaging thousands of local businesses and triggering landslides and floods. Damages are estimated to reach $100 million. For Nguyen, Yagi was a devastating blow. She'd borrowed money from friends and family to invest in the restaurant so she could welcome tourists back after taking a major financial hit during the COVID pandemic. A week before the typhoon struck, she also bought audio, video and lighting equipment that cost around $120,000 to facilitate big events, now all destroyed.
Chắc chắn là trắng tay anh ạ, bởi vì là bọn em là vốn là đi vay hết. Vốn là vay hết hoàn toàn. Và giả nợ cũ còn chưa trả hết. Thì bây giờ lại thế này tiếp thì là chắc chắn là trắng tay rồi. Không còn gì nữa. Không thể khóc mà cũng không biết làm thế nào được nữa. Nó quá đau.
The pain is doubled because this restaurant was not only Nguyen's sole source of income, but it served as a home for her and her 2 daughters. Together with the help of other locals, they've begun the cleanup. And with no other option, she's vowed to try and bring the eatery back to life.
Em vẫn sẽ tiếp tục làm. Trừ khi là em không còn sức khỏe nữa hoặc là em không có khả năng không thể đi lại được nữa thì phải chịu. Rồi em sẽ làm đến khi nào mà cứ làm. Nhiệt huyết trong con người của em không bao giờ là dừng lại.
Authorities estimate it will take at least 1 month for businesses to rebuild and begin to reopen their doors. But with the structure of Nguyen's restaurant barely intact, there could be a much longer road to recovery. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Millions of people in the United States and around the world are expected to watch Kamala Harris and Donald Trump go head-to-head tonight in a primetime debate. It will be their first and possibly only debate during the campaign for November's elections. Louise Watt reports.
Taking a break from preparing for possibly her biggest test in this election campaign, Kamala Harris with her husband in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state and the setting for a US election debate that could make or break her bid for the Oval Office.
Are you ready, Madam Vice President?
Ready.
Democratic candidate Harris and her opponent, Republican Donald Trump, will go face-to-face on Tuesday for the first time since Harris entered the presidential race and wiped out Trump's lead in the polls. She's called Trump unserious and touted her background as a prosecutor in contrast with Trump, the first former US president to be convicted of felony crimes.
As Attorney General, I held the big Wall Street banks accountable for fraud. Well, Donald Trump was just found guilty of fraud. 34 counts, to be exact.
Former President Trump has called Harris a nasty person. At a campaign event in another key state, Wisconsin, he criticized Harris and President Joe Biden.
He is the worst president in history. She will be worse than him. She will be worse than him. And Trump is never wrong. I am never, ever wrong.
Trump goes into the 90-minute primetime show with more experience. It will be his 7th presidential debate, the most of any candidate in modern history. He and Harris are expected to argue over the economy, immigration, abortion and crime, watched by millions of voters.
This is definitely one of the more consequential debates in recent history, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the race is just so close that any movement of the needle could have a profound impact on the election. And the other one is the simple fact that a lot of Americans still don't know who Kamala Harris is.
Harris has not given a single news conference since becoming the Democratic nominee in August. And that was after Biden's faltering performance in his debate against Trump eventually forced him to abandon the race.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Like that debate, when Harris and Trump meet, there will be no live audience, and microphones will be muted when the other candidate is speaking. A format seen to benefit Trump, whose hecklings and interruptions in the past put off moderate voters. But given that Trump is already a known quantity, most eyes are expected to be on Harris, with this debate hers to win or lose. Joseph Wu and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, residents in Taiwan's rural northeast come together to stamp out a stinky problem.
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan is often lauded for taking decisive action to solve its massive waste problems of the 80s and 90s. But today, in more rural parts of the country, less frequent trash services and wider patrol areas could still be behind a problem causing a stink for local residents. Reese Ayers reports from Yilan.
It's dirty, sweaty work, pulling bag after bag of trash out from the brush. But it's a labour of love for 46-year-old French chef Guillaume Brissot, who could no longer ignore the piles of garbage he'd noticed building up around the rural roads near his home in Yilan, in Taiwan's northeast.
I live here, it's my neighborhood, and I very often have a walk or a run here in the morning. And so I noticed that the riverbed is always full of trash. I also saw people like throwing trash from the bridge down to the river, and that happens really often.
To help with the cleanup, Brissot enlisted a volunteer from Wild Ocean, Taiwan. That's a community project he started to help protect local marine ecosystems. He also brought in some friends from a local indigenous village.
我觉得这种垃圾应该都是由本地人开始做起，然后我觉得政府也要就是多出一点力量。
Between them, the volunteers hit several spots along each side of the Luodong River, which runs right through Yilan County. A mix of household and industrial, this mound of garbage was all pulled from just along this riverbank. It's just one of several dump sites along this single stretch of road. And it's just a fraction of the problem, Brissot tells me, as recent storms already washed much of the illegally dumped trash into the ocean. Signs in the area do warn against dumping, but it seems to be doing little to solve the issue.
And they all have a phone number to use if you notice actually littering or trashes. That's what I did. But I don't think a lot of people are calling, and that's the problem.
Another part of the problem could be related to Taiwan's trash collection system. In Taiwan, most people need to meet the trash trucks to have their garbage collected. While effective in cities, trash collection routes in rural areas can be less accommodating.
我想可能是他们为了方便吧，但我不知道垃圾车有没有经过到他们家，可能没有经过到他们家，然后他们就想要把他们垃圾丢到这个罗东溪这边。
The local River Management Bureau says they actively investigate reports of illegal dumping and seek prosecution where possible, and that they're working with the local community on several projects.
我觉得最重要的还是要从教育做起，所以呢，我们做这些活动的时候，都会结合邻近的学校，来把这个对于河川爱护河川的一个观念。 从小就深植在小朋友的身上。
Brissot and his team's haul, while significant, is just the tip of the iceberg. The local government says they're doing their part too, but unless the root cause of the issue is addressed, dump sites like these will continue to pile up. Alex Chen, Jonathan Kaplan and Reese Ayers in Yilan for TaiwanPlus.
India's Supreme Court has ordered doctors back to work after a month-long protest over the rape and murder of a trainee medic. But some say they don't feel safe going back to work.
Doctors are getting regular threats. Because we are protesting, we are getting regular threats. We don't know from whom, I mean, I don't want to name, but we are getting regular threats. So tell me, how can we join, I mean, we can restart the work if we have such threats coming on regularly upon us.
Doctors had been demanding justice and better working conditions. The court has ordered the state government to take steps to ensure the safety of doctors. But it says protesters who fail to return to work may face punishment. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says he is ramping up the country's nuclear defenses. The state-run KRT channel showed footage of Kim announcing plans to increase the number of nuclear weapons, quote, exponentially. He was speaking at an event to mark the country's founding day. Kim Jong-un says North Korea must be ready to use nuclear force at any time in response to what it calls threats from the U.S. and its allies. Some of the country's top athletes are being recruited by the government to help launch a new sports ministry. The initiative was floated by President Lai Ching-te in his inauguration speech. It's hoped the new ministry will help bring Taiwan to the world and the world to Taiwan, as John Van Triest now reports.
Judo champion Yang Yongwei spars with students at National Taiwan University of Sport. He's here to promote sport as Taiwan marks National Physical Education Day. Though these students have watched him compete on TV, most recently at the Paris Olympics, seeing his moves in person is eye-opening for them. Taiwan hopes to train students like these into the next generation of sporting greats.
But
the government thinks training sessions like this aren't enough. It wants to replace the existing sports administration with a full-blown sports ministry that will promote athletic excellence and promote Taiwan's global presence in other ways, like winning the right to host big sporting events. President Lai Ching-te first came out with the idea in May during his inaugural address, and there are signs it could be founded next year. As Yang practiced with students, other big sporting names, including Olympic gold medalists Lin Yuting and Li Yang, met with Premier Zhou Rongtai. They've been named members of a committee to set up the ministry. Zhuo says officials want to know what those who've been on the podium think about the project.
都非常的重视，我们也都希望能够在尽快的时间内来看到、来听到我们咨询小组对政府的提出的种种的建议。
The government hopes the new ministry will promote exercise, but also put Taiwan in the global spotlight as the home of world-class athletes and the host of world-class competitions. Klein Wang and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
The Pope is calling out clerical sexual abuse in East Timor. Pope Francis told the country's political authorities they need to guarantee the safety of all young people after revelations of abuse by senior clergy members. The Pope will hold a mass expected to draw more than half the Southeast Asian nation's population. East Timor is the second most Catholic country in the world after the Vatican City. It's the penultimate stop on the Pope's 12-day Asia-Pacific tour. A Taiwanese woman living in France has opened a shop offering a taste of Taiwan. Her store fosters a sense of community among Taiwanese people in Paris and helps share the country's culture by way of people's stomachs. In the heart of Paris, there's a shop that when you walk in, it feels like it's been airlifted straight out of Taiwan. Its decor, its atmosphere, and the things it sells are all very Taiwanese. But the owner specializes in one particular Taiwanese snack, wheel cakes, and it's bringing this Taiwanese favorite to everybody in the French capital.
我觉得在车轮饼可能对大部分台湾人来讲没有什么，这东西是稀松平常，每天都在我们的生活之中，它没有什么特别的。可是当你离开台湾超过10年的时候，这其实就是我的小确幸。
Owner Qiao Wei is from Taichung in central Taiwan. After studying French, she packed up and moved to France, hoping to prove herself far away from home.
其实我有点反骨，就是我妈妈小时候就跟我说啊，你念法文你找不到工作的，然后我想说我就找给你看。
After working in France for a few years, Qiao Wei wanted to leave the rat race and do something more fulfilling.
我那时候很想回台湾，但是因为我已经结婚了，然后我也不能说任性，我想要回台湾就回台湾，我还要顾虑到我先生。
After a trip back to Taiwan, she decided to bring a little part of her first home to her new one in France.
所以我那时候就觉得，那我回来后，我想要创造一个空间，就是这个空间是给我的，甚至是给一些在这里生活很久的台湾人，就是感觉好像是家的那种记忆中的感觉。
Qiao Wei stayed in Taiwan to learn the art of making wheel cakes and to purchase the equipment and goods she'd need to open her store. The idea of Qiaohu was born, but planning out the venture and opening its doors proved to be another challenge.
就是在这之前，我必须要跟房东说我要做是什么，但是这个东西在这里根本就不存在，所以我必须要一直去就是说服他们。但是我前面失败了好几次，我甚至觉得我不会成功。
Qiao Wei went so far as to develop special flavors and techniques to accommodate local tastes.
想说要怎么做会比较漂亮。像台湾有很多车里面会留边，可是我这里不留边，你知道为什么吗？因为法国甜点很有名，都做得很漂亮。不过留边脆脆的，但是这里行不通。
But in the end, Qiao Wei's hard work paid off, and she got what she wanted, a shop that fostered a feeling of home for Taiwanese people in France. And the same shop helps people unfamiliar with Taiwan learn more about the country through its food and culture.
I like this one, the azuki. Thanks to Kiao, I know more about Taiwan and yes, the products.
Qiao feels almost out of place on the streets of Paris for how distinctly Taiwanese it is. But much like its founder, it tells a tale of adventure and persistence, and is winning over Parisians with its distinctly Taiwanese charm. Howard Zhang, Leon Lin, and Leslie Liao in Paris, France for TaiwanPlus. And we'd like to thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out this wonder dog named Floki showing off his foot volley skills in Rio de Janeiro that have made him an internet sensation in Brazil. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.